Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. So today we're going to talk about finances and how I was able to change my mindset to start growing the amount of money that I have instead of going deeper and deeper into debt. So let's get to it. All right, I think of finances as I do other challenges that I've had in my life, right? Whether it be food challenges or exercise challenges, right? That they're largely a symptom of some other underlying issue. And when it comes to finances, I would say that my issue had always been the keeping up with the Joneses syndrome, right? Is that I always had this idea in my mind that I needed to keep up with, whether it was a new car or a certain type of clothing or toys. I felt like there was this level that I always had to keep up with. And what ends up happening when you start doing that is that you just slide deeper and deeper and deeper into the negative. And it wasn't until about 9 years ago or so, 8 years ago, when my wife and I started having a family, that I first set up a budget. Before that, I had no idea how much money was coming in and how much money was going out. No clue. And so I really didn't know that as time was going on, I was just falling deeper and deeper and deeper into debt. And when we started to have a family, I was like, I need to figure this out. How much money do we actually have? So I set up a budget. And I basically listed the amount of money that we had coming into our system and the amount of money that was going out of our system. And in all honesty, back then, it wasn't sustainable in any way. And inherently, I think that right there, without even making any real conscious actions, that set in motion a series of events that has helped us over the last 8 years in sometimes rapid motion and sometimes slower motion, really affect our financial futures. So the first thing that it did is it helped us identify exactly how much money we had coming in and how much going out, so that we could start to really check on things that were of value to us and things that weren't. And the first thing that we did automatically was just get rid of cable. We cut the cord. We found cheaper ways to entertain ourselves in terms of the screen time was concerned. Every time, we kept paying these balances that we had on all these debts that we had, whether it was credit cards or cars or toys that we had put on credit or furniture that we had put on credit. Every single time that we paid one of those off, we were like, oh, now there's extra money in the budget that we can go out and find some new debt. And that continued for a long time. Now, this whole time, we were still contributing to our 401ks and getting the maximum match that we could get, but we really had no savings. If something broke in the house, that got added onto the debt. And I started really thinking about the debt that we had, and the fact that every time that we paid off a debt, that all we did was just replace it with a new debt. And so we were never able to build any meaningful wealth. Especially since when I started calculating that every single time I send a payment to one of these places, I'm losing between 3% and upwards of 15 and 16% with these credit cards. And when I considered the amount of money that I was making on my tiny little, at the time, probably $6,000 or $7,000 retirement account, and saw that it was earning growth between 7 and 10%, it blew my mind, and it was almost just one of those things that was just embarrassing to me to even think about, because it's simple math at that point. Any debt that I have, I'm losing an additional amount of money, and any savings I have, I'm gaining an additional amount of money. And so we really started down this line of eliminating the debt, not replacing the debts when we paid them off with new debts. And then I just stumbled across Dave Ramsey, and I don't know how you just stumble across Dave Ramsey because he's so famous. As I dove deeper into his teachings and his principles, I will say that I don't agree with absolutely everything that he pontificates on, but the one thing that is just so absolutely clear, because it's pure mathematical, is the fact that if you have debt, you can't grow wealth. Because you are legitimately giving away between 3 and upwards for some of these credit cards, 20 or payday loans, even more percent for every amount of money that you owe them. And so that just reinforced in us that we needed to get rid of these debts. And so we've been very fortunate that we've been able to just start knocking these debts off. That's not to say that we're completely debt-free at this point, but we are on our way. And what we've noticed, now again, we don't follow like Dave Ramsey's plan to a T. We have not stopped contributing or saving as we've been paying off these debts. But what we've noticed is that our wealth has grown at levels that I never would have imagined that it would have in such a short period of time. Now, a lot of that is because of various trends in the stock market that have occurred, but I would argue that most of it is because we actually now have money that we can put into the stock market and money that we can put into our savings. Last year we had the engine in our lawnmower went out, and we didn't have to do credit card anymore for that. Our snowblower, we live in an area of the country that routinely receives upwards of 60, 70 inches of snow every year. Our snowblower stopped working, and I didn't have to use a credit card to buy a new one. We were able to use our savings. And so I think that the real important thing that I just want to point out in this video is that shift between thinking that anytime you eliminate a debt, that you should replace it with a new debt just because you were able to survive on the number of bills that you had at that time. And that if you shift that mind frame to that every eliminated debt is not an opportunity to get another toy or to keep up with the Joneses in another way, but that it's an opportunity to now build wealth, the wealthier you will be. And I do believe, as Dave Ramsey and some of his surrogates point out, that it is possible to be an everyday millionaire. And I hope that one day that is something that my wife and I can be proud to say. I truly do now have the belief that I can. Now, it's interesting, right? Because there are insane thoughts that pop into my head every once in a while. We are so close. So close. We have one debt left. We have a car loan that we've refinanced down to a super short loan and low interest rate and everything just so that we can get rid of this. And we're so close. But I do have insane thoughts that pop into my brain every once in a while. Hey, why don't you go out and get a new car? I drive a 2013 sedan. I want a truck. I do. I really want a truck, right? And that's where that keeping up with the Joneses starts popping in. I would consider those insane thoughts, right? Because they are thoughts that derail you from what your ultimate plan and goal is. And those thoughts have not been eliminated from my brain, right? But what has happened is that because we have such an established plan and such an established goal, that I'm not as affected by those insane thoughts that then pop into my brain. I don't act on those insane thoughts. I know that I could go to any dealership right now and buy a new car on credit and be driving the fanciest looking thing around. But I think, as many economists will point out, that is not the plan to build wealth. And so we are committed to this plan to eliminate all of our debt and to continue to build wealth, because what it shows is that the growth is exponential. The growth is exponential, and your independence, your financial independence, becomes closer and closer and closer. Following a plan of growing wealth and not growing the wealth of big banks is an opportunity for you to have financial independence. So thank you for listening. These are just my thoughts of the day, and please let me know if you have any comments.